Hello, great ones. We are back for another episode of the Live and Be Great podcast. Still no intro. My bad. Um, I'll get to it. Y'all know I have my ADHD, my anxiety, my depression, that I deal with. So my perfectionism has been kicking my behind lately. With so much, I don't know, so much is going on. I don't know why it's at a heightened time this year. I'll have to figure it out. I'm sure at the end of the season, I will be able to tell you all what that is. I'll come up with something to explain it. But and I think from the normal schedule, if you've been with me since the beginning, I like to do every 2 weeks. And if I don't do every 2 weeks, I'll try to come back the next week. But I think there's going to be more grace here because I only want to show up. I only want to show up for my listeners when I have something to say and I'm in the right mind state, right? And this is all about me practicing what I preach on here when it comes to self-care and taking care of your mental health. Um, that's who I am, right? So we're in this together. It's not going to be perfect because life isn't. And I just am grateful and thankful that I have the freedom to choose and decide. And, if you stay with me, great. If you don't, I understand. Okay. But I'm still going to do my best to be as authentic as I can, as transparent as I can with this journey to motivate, educate, inspire, and inspire all, okay, to live and be great in the best way possible. So, this week, I want to talk about the movie Straw. I seen it. It's a Tyler Perry movie on Netflix. I watched it with a group of women, a wellness group that I'm a part of. And, after we watch the movies together, we have certain talks and certain discussions and things of that nature. And this was a story that I do feel like needed to be told when it comes to Black women and how they can have those days. And yes, there's a spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie Straw, or if you haven't don't intend on seeing it. You can still sit back and listen or share this with somebody. But in the movie Straw, um, there was a lot of people. There are a lot of reactions on social media, but also in the group that I watched it on, because we watched it through Zoom together, um, that had to turn the movie off within the first 15 minutes of the film, right? And there's a lot of trauma back to back to back. Like sometimes based off of your circumstances, your day can be a domino effect based off of existing issues, and a lot of those issues you have no control over. Like I have no control over racism, right? I have no control over what is considered poverty. I have no control over other people's reactions and other people's perceptions of me. So sometimes, like, your soul, your spirit can take a hit and you can feel like no one is listening, like no one cares. Um, so these stories matter in that sense, right? But there is a fine line between visibility and exploitation, right? I did. I enjoyed the movie. Um, as far as what I would say the final message was, which was, to showcase or give a woman like Jania's character a platform to be seen, right? To for people to understand. But judging by the fact that so many people that also, were felt validated by seeing Jania's story because they felt like Jania's story was their story, there were also a lot of people that were triggered, right? And there's a reason for that. And I don't want people to ignore their spiritual, mental responses to watching certain things, especially when this one that is centered around Black women, right? The exploitative part is that the actors get to go back to their regular lives, right? Um, but when the trauma is so compacted, when it's back to back to back to back to back trauma and no room to process, right? Or when it comes to Tyler Perry, when that is his constant, hmm, how should I say? If that is his, should I say meal ticket? I don't know if that's the right word. But if he's found like, okay, this is my niche, that sounds better. If that is his niche, right? We also have to think about the victims of that are being portrayed in that story, but people that haven't experienced that story can develop a certain perception, right? People who haven't experienced that story, when it's just you don't really see the after effects. It's kind of like, oh, this woman is strong, right? But even in the end, yeah, you see her reach her breaking point. But because it's so much, it can look unrealistic. Not to say or not to take away that, yeah, people can have days like that where there's a trickle down effect based off of circumstances that you have no control over, right? Um, but the triggering of those people, the break, right? The break, the pause to process what is going on is it's extremely, extremely important, right? And when it comes to the strong Black woman narrative being weaponized, right? People can they feel sometimes people feel like they have no control over what a Black woman is experiencing, right? Like when we talk about slavery and the after effects, people, white people oftentimes, oh, that happened so long ago and I wasn't the one who enslaved you, so like stop talking about it, right? Or you were never a slave. But as science has showed, we still have to deal with the trauma effects through eugenics, through generational trauma, generational PTSD, right? There are after effects that continue through the bloodline. There's after effects when it comes to if you're being trained to look at a particular type of person a certain type of way based on what you see in the media and you've never experienced what they've experienced or you're not friends with that type of person to hear their story or watch them personally go through that. People can just look at Black women as being strong and then expect them to just take and take and take and take and take to the point where when you do hear those stories, they're like, well, they're strong, they'll get through it. Like nobody, you can you can create a structure or a perception that they don't need help because they've gone through so much, right? Um, Now into my sciences, right? And this is just a revelation that I have, and it might be like completely off for people who don't have the esoteric knowledge or aren't into those type of sciences and those type of things, right? I feel like Tyler Perry's intentions are good, you know? I am happy that yeah, the other effect is that women feel there are certain types of women that feel validated, especially black women that feel validated when they watch his movies, right? And there are people that are learning, you know, they're learning about certain circumstances that any given day they would never go through, right? They might be learning to have empathy for people who do go through things that they have never gone through, right? Developing an understanding for a community, right? But Tyler Perry is a Virgo, okay? So, me working with Virgos and my best friends being Virgos, and I have a brother that's a Virgo, I've noticed that they have a gift of service, right? If you have a Virgo in your life, they're always on the move. They're always on the go. Um, they could be very thoughtful, very caring. And they can also feel like they have to fix everything. Okay. So watching Tyler Perry's work, right? You can see the anxiety. You can see his what goes on in his head. A lot of times people with anxiety, and I haven't met a Virgo that doesn't have anxiety. I haven't met one. I haven't met one. I haven't seen one that's in the public that does not have anxiety, right? And is a perfectionist, okay? And that doesn't want to give back and to have some sort of helping and healing something, right? Regardless whether they're on the light side or dark side. That service part is there somewhere, right? Um, they can find themselves in a loop, okay, of anxiety, of um, a cognitive distortion when it comes to ways of thinking because they want to fix things and they want to fix things fast, right? They want a concrete solution. They can walk into any company and see where the disconnect is, or any group, or any you know any space that involves people. Good, bad, on the business level or the community level, even familial level, whatever it is, okay? And see what the issue is. And they feel like they need to fix it, okay? But not everything is supposed to be fixed. And sometimes your way isn't the best way, right? And the catastrophizing, that is something that can happen with people who suffer from anxiety, or people who feel the need to fix things, to be perfect in everything that they do, right? The people that want to constantly help, the people that are attracted to broken people, right? Um, their trauma, right, has something to do with that, but also they can kind of miss the mark when people just need them to listen to their story but not fix it, right? Or if people have already fixed that story or fixed what has happened and they just want to share that I've gone through it, right? Oftentimes, I would hear from Virgos something will be going on in their family, right? And they'll be the last to know. The reason why they're the last to know is because of the panic. Whenever they cannot help you, right? That's when you're stupid, how could you do this? And that's when they can get, a little vicious in their tone. They might come back and apologize, but it's coming from a place of they want to fix stuff for people, especially the people that they care about, right? So Tyler Perry, the back-to-back trauma, right? And what I'm speaking about is, for example, in the movie, um, the lady woke up, got her child ready, right? And the child was worried about school lunch. Mom couldn't pay for the school lunch, right? And was getting paid, and she was like, "I'll take care of it," because the teacher um embarrassed the child in front of everybody, and talked about how she couldn't get the special lunch anymore, and the mom needs to bring $40 to the school, right? So that's already one thing, trying to get the child ready. A child that has illnesses, sicknesses, seizures, right, has to take medication and things of that nature. And then as she's walking out there, the landlord is like, the rent is late. So she's having this big argument with the landlord, and landlord is like, if you don't have your stuff by the time you say you're gonna have the money, all your stuff is gonna be outside, right? Gets to work. No, drops the kid off, right? Gets to work, late to work, getting told off, spoke with the boss like, let me see you, you late, this, that, and the other, you know, why you late? She trying to explain to the boss what's going on. She gets a call from school. She needs to, bring the money or whatever the case may be. Um, and she asks her boss for the check. Boss is like, absolutely not, but you got 30 minutes. Okay. Um, she goes to the bank, and she's not able to skip the line or ask, could she get an advance for the $40, because she's like, I come in, whatever, my child really needs this. She goes to the school, is not able to get the $40, but goes to the school uh because that's what she's supposed to be doing, because she gets a call from the school. But basically, without giving too much away and like talking about the entire the entire movie, which is difficult. But I want to say after that, like, there's an instance where she's trying to race somewhere, either back to work or back to the school. She goes to the school, and a child gets is getting taken away by, child protective services. She comes out of that, and she's trying to rush to get back to work and possibly beg the boss for her check again, because it's Friday, it's payday. And gets she ends up cutting off a cop, and gets run off the road by the cop, and the cops threatens her, right? And she gets they end up having to tow the car away or whatnot. The cops racist, and the cops like, oh, um and the cop is off duty, which is ridiculous, but the cop's off duty, and he's like, I just need a reason to blow your head off or whatnot. And y'all, that's a lot. Like, that's not, and that's like the first 15 minutes of the movie. Okay? First 15 minutes of the movie. It's raining outside. She goes back to her apartment. All her stuff outside, right? Goes to work, ends up having to walk to work because they end up towing her car because she didn't have no insurance. Towing her car. And then it's like, okay, there is not. That's usually how Tyler Perry's all of his shows are like that. There's no breathing room, right? And how Virgo mind works when you're telling them you have an issue, especially if they can't fix it, or they don't know how to fix it, or they want to fix it, or they just be thinking about you, and maybe you've been going through the same issue, right? Their mind goes into what can happen if I don't fix this problem perfectly. What can happen? What can happen? And that anxiety for them, you know, or people who have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety or severe anxiety, is if I don't do this perfectly, somebody will die in their body, right? They're not going to say that out loud, but in their that's what their body is reacting to. That's how their mind is going. So it's a catastrophizing type of think way of thinking when there's an issue. That's what we call catastrophizing, when you just go to the depths of 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 your finger being cut by a paper. Right? Oh, it can get infected. Oh, and they might have to amputate your finger. Oh, and you can't, that's your writing hand. Oh, and you won't be able to work. Oh, you're gonna get put on the streets. Like, that's how their mind works when it comes to anxiety, right? And those of us who suffer from anxiety, that's how they process trauma. Like they stack on the crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis. They could just be dealing with one, right? But they stack on the after effects if I don't fix this perfectly for myself or this person. That's anxiety right there in a nutshell. That's why people get diagnosed for it. You can have a little bit of anxiety if you're worried about getting a job or going to an interview. You can have a little bit of anxiety or panic attack if you are getting married, you're getting cold feet, right? If you're going into surgery and there's high risk surgery and things of that nature. Whatever the case may be, yeah, that's normal, right? But Virgos from sorry, like I haven't seen one. I told you I ain't seen one. Okay? That don't have this level of anxiety. And every last one that I talk to, right? They tell me I'm not wrong. Okay? Um but if we're bringing it back to people who have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, that's how their mind works. And this is trauma stacking. And when you trauma stack, right? The people around you can grow numb to it because they're not in their body. They're not in your body when you suffer from anxiety. So they don't know why you're taking it that far, why you're reacting the way that you're reacting. They don't know, right? That you're catastrophizing. They just know, wait a minute, I needed an extra $10 for my light bill. I'm not finna call that Virgo. Virgo is a last resort I'm gonna call because I just said I needed $10. I get paid Friday. I can pay it back. In the Virgo's mind, if I tell that Virgo, they're gonna think about, oh, I'm getting kicked out, and then I'm gonna get sick, and I got kids and all that stuff. No, 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 no. I'm not. I'm gonna go to the one that's calm, even with parents, right? Children choose what they ask for. They choose the proper parent. They choose the particular parent or whichever parent or auntie or whoever, whatever relative that's taking care of them, or caregiver is taking based off of what they know that caregiver's response is going to be, right? So when it comes to that, right? And nobody's inside the body. They just kind of like dismiss it, right? They kind of dismiss that I might give this person a full-on panic attack that might even lead to a heart attack or a stroke, right? It could be so bad. I don't want to be responsible for that. So I'm gonna just avoid it, right? And a lot of people, they don't even know, majority of people don't even know to articulate their anxiety that way. I know how to articulate it because of my background in psychology, right? I know how to articulate it because of my clients. I know how to articulate it because of my friends, the people my clients, right? My family, right? I know how to articulate it based off of being able to have that education and put those pieces together, but the common person does not, right? So you can trigger people who have experiences like that, right? You can make them feel seen as well, but also you can build a culture that grows numb to that process, right? So based off of this, because we don't know, what when people are billionaires and they're making money off of a particular thing, we don't necessarily know what their intention is. We can't for fact say their intention is pure. right? But for some reason, it's leaning a tad bit more towards the pure side or the service side because I know Tyler Perry's a Virgo and because I know we know a good background of his story, and he was raised by women, and he speaks about what he's seen, and he has compassion for those stories, right? But okay, the danger the danger is the no time to process, because if you don't understand the breakdown, you could just look, it could be like watching a horror movie. You watch it, you scare for a moment, right? You in the space, you in the victim space, and then you go about your everyday life and you're not making the connection because there's no time to process, right? And he doesn't make horror films, but to people who like black women, that could be a horror film. It's a horrific thing, right? What we can experience, like, not only do we have to deal with you know, the regular pitfalls of adulting, right? And some people being a caretaker, caregiver, working a job or whatever, poverty, things of that nature. But we also have to work with the systemic issues of how we're trained to not only be looked at, but how we look at each other, right? When we talk about anti-blackness, we're not just talking about white people, right? If you tell somebody, hey, if you're plus size, right? And they don't see those people being the love interest, and they don't see them being the main character, right? Over time, people are going to start to see, okay, that is not a representation of beauty, right? Not only does that happen to the people who are not plus size, right? It also happens to the people who are plus size. They look at each other like that. They look in the mirror like that, right? So when I talk about anti-blackness, if you saw how the lady was being treated, Janaya, in the film, we taught to look at each other and talk to each other a certain way, right? That's trauma. That's how it goes, right? And you can go deeper into the studies of the training and are how people are taught to think about each other, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get sidetracked. I don't want to confuse you guys, but there's a lot of black women have to deal with, okay? They do, right? And when you are telling our stories and you don't give people time to process the first thing, and the first thing, they don't see the weight of the first instance. They don't. They just see, oh, you can go through a lot. You strong. Period. End of story. I could go back to my life. Right? I don't have to look at how the after effects on my mental will affect me. Right? The after effects, or them, the character, I should say, or black women. Right? Um, I could even normalize that trauma. So yeah, that's the danger. That's the danger of that. People can come society can become they are getting desensitized to black women's pain, right? We already, I want you to look up the stories, or some you might know the stories about how the infant mortality rate, right, is, I believe, 4 times higher in black women than white women, right? The doctors will come out and say, yeah, we're trained to look at black people as if they can take a lot, right? So we don't, when they say something hurts, we don't have to come right away, you know? We don't have to. We look at their circumstances, desensitized, right? When a black woman says, hey, I need help based off of the training, oh, she's so strong, she's so this, people looking at her like, yeah, you got this. They don't know what to do, right? They don't know what to do. It's like because you're seeing their stories told in this way without room to process, without room to breathe, without room to flesh it out, right? It's an issue, right? Even and it's just like somebody like me, right? Can still feel unseen even if the story is about them. Because it is extremely exhausting. If this is the way the story is being told, and the takeaway from a lot of people is that, yeah, you can take all of this. I watched Tyler Perry. You know, it's not fair. It's not okay. That part, does that not matter? Yeah, okay. Jania's story matters, but flesh her stuff out. Flesh it out. Pause it a bit. They could have made a whole series off of that. They could have made like three, right? And then where's the redemption? Where's the redemption for her character as far as what happens after this psychotic break that she had? What happens after that? What can people do when they feel themselves spiraling, right? Or if they see somebody spiraling, okay? Is the answer to put, because right now the answer is they could take anything. You know, I mean, yeah, they were able to see some sort of redemption as far as Janiyah had fans that heard her story, right? Heard about how her day was going and she just wanted to do what she needed to do to take care of her daughter. Had fans and things of that nature. People that watched the coverage on the news. They had like, protests and free Janiyah posters and stuff like that. And she had the the manager of the bank, be in her corner. She had one of the other police officers um be in her corner. Yeah, that's great. And there's always no there's listen, there's always somebody that will support the main character that's struggling. There's always somebody, some knight in shining armor, right? That comes in and saves the day. Yeah. Wonderful, great. But what does that do? It there's a piece missing, right? So the intention, great. Intention to tell this story, great. But what about the perception that we are just these strong beings that can take a lot? What happens after that, right? And the danger of also there is people like Janiyah that didn't have health insurance, right? So she couldn't possibly go see a therapist, you know? She didn't have access to those type of resources. Yeah, there might be some free groups that she can go to that doesn't require insurance and things of that nature. Put that in a movie. Put a movie in there like that. Like, do you know that these things exist for you in your position, you know? But also not just, hey, people need to be more compassionate towards each other, but racism is still a thing. It is. Anti-blackness is still a thing. Okay? It is. Crabs in a barrel mentality is still a thing. Yeah, art supposed to spark a conversation. You're supposed to have free thought to explore and interpret things. But when we're talking about trauma, Black women's trauma in particular, we need more. We need more space and time to process, right? Where's the healing, right? We have to make space for that. Yes, make people aware. But what about the victim in this? How can she feel helped? How can she feel supported? We have to make space for softness. We have to make space for safety, vulnerability. We have to make space for that. And we have to teach people that, right? You who's listening, you have permission to pause. You have permission to feel. You have permission to not be strong today, no matter who's listening to me, okay? Regardless of whether you're a Black woman or not. Because, I have people from all over that listen to this podcast all over the world, but you have permission, right? For example, um, I think I've told this story before, but I every place that I've worked, right? I've been undertrained. Every place. Every place, even if I have supervision. Every place that it could be, majority Black people, could be mixed. I think I want to say I've been doing stuff from the arts, from IT to psychology, like all over, all the many spaces that I've been in. Um, there's always, oh, you got it. Oh, and I'm telling the supervisor, whoever, I don't feel confident in this, right? I'm not ready yet. Yeah, you are. No, you got it. What? Even in my profession as when I became a therapist, that whole experience, which I'll have to retell that story again. That experience, there's an assumption that I could take it, right? I'll be fine. Asking my boss, who is also a therapist, for a mental health day after she just took one a week ago, a week before. You need a mental health day. But what can we do so you don't need those? What? No, I understand since I just took one. No, because I'm a black woman. She was a white woman, and she's been taught to look at me as if I don't need those, right? I took my mental health day. I did, you know? But it's like, and this is just, it's just been like that. It's been like that. It's one reason I had to leave corporate. But you would think in the space where people should have an understanding of mental health that they would know, that they would automatically be like, yeah, this is a human being that is on the brink of burnout or saying mentally she cannot do it today. I understand that because I went to school and I have clients. This is my profession. The mind, mental health. You would think that. No, 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 no. And that's why, and this is why, right? This is why we also have to do a better job, those of us who know better, okay? To give ourselves permission to be soft, to be vulnerable, to need and accept protection and create those boundaries. It's important. Stories like that. And yeah, listen. Flesh this out again. I'll flesh this out again. So many stories, and I will be telling them so you guys understand my point, right? So that's what I wanted to speak on. That is why I say I'm worried about the numbness because that is what I'm seeing happen to that, right? The issue with Megan Thee Stallion, Haley Bailey right now, even back to how many jokes were made about Tina Turner. Okay, these stories being told, we are seeing the trauma, but the healing part needs to show up more when we tell this story, right? The pause before the trickle down effects needs to happen, okay? It needs to happen, and I hope that, one day Tyler Perry, since he has that platform, or anybody that does have the power to tell these stories, um, that they get a second opinion, not just a yes man, but like actually listen and pay attention. There's a reason why there's people, this particular movie, even though they know what they getting when they watch a Tyler Perry movie, you're gonna see some trauma, you're gonna see some joy, but you definitely gonna get that back to back trauma, right? There's a reason why so many black women had to turn the movie off within the first 15 minutes. That counts as well. Those women need to be seen as well, right? And we need to flesh out the healing in the storytelling. It needs to be included. Okay? So, you all out there, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be held. You are allowed to be fully seen, not just as strong, but as soft, as whole, and worthy. All right? This was a tough one. This is a tough one, but I would love to know how you all think, what you think about the movie and what I've said. I'd love to hear your feedback. Um, You can reach out to me at latanya@liveandbegreat.com. You can follow me at Live and Be Great with Latanya on YouTube and Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok at live and be great underscore Latanya, right? I'll have my intro and outro soon. But I'm a work in progress like we all are, okay? We all are, and I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Until next time, give yourself permission to live and be great.